Hello, everyone. My name is Antoni Pizà. I'm the director of the Foundation for Iberian Music at the City University of New York. And I have the great pleasure today to be able to talk with a person I've known for a while. And I'm a great admirer and I have a great respect for his work. He is Hayk Arsenyan. He is a pianist and a scholar. He has a PhD from the University of Iowa, and he recently published a book based on his dissertation, which is called, the dissertation I believe is called The Worlds of Antonio Soler, and the book is translated into Spanish, published by Editorial Boileau, and the translation is El Mundo de Antonio Soler, straightforward translation. And anyway, Hayk, good to see you. It's such a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you very much for hosting me. It's been a while, and it is great to see you. Although over Zoom, but I think we got used to this format also during the pandemic. But I really look forward to seeing you back in New York City, hopefully soon.
Yes,
so thank you very
looking
much for
forward to an in-person meeting. And by the way, today is March the 27th, 2024, because you never know when anyone might watch this, if anyone will watch it. I hope they do. This is not COVID. We're still doing COVID things, but it's not the COVID period. Anyway, to the point, tell us a little bit. You are a pianist. Mostly, you're a composer also, and you're also a scholar. You have a PhD in musicology, and you dedicated your thesis, your doctoral dissertation to Antonio Soler. But tell us a little bit about your musical background. How did you get this? And also, we could segue into how did you get started with Antonio Soler?
Yes, I'm a pianist. I'm a composer. I started my musical journey as a violinist, in fact. And after more than 10 years of violin, but of course, parallelly also playing the piano and composing, I decided to concentrate on the piano. Still kept composing, and I still compose. I'm a member of the composers unions in France and in Armenia. And I have several works published as a composer, but I am mostly pianist, and I teach. So I used to teach at NYU for 9 years. Now I'm teaching mostly privately, and I also travel and give master classes. And master classes are on, of course, on any music, or whatever the students at the universities present, but I really love working on Spanish and Catalan and 18th century, especially so early music. This is sort of my specialty, and something that I fell in love with absolutely accidentally. Not with early music. I've always loved early music, but when I was doing my master's in Moscow and was at the library looking for something new in terms of early music to present, and I was going through alphabetically. Somehow after Froberger there was Soler. It was misplaced, and I took the Froberger because I loved it, and then Soler I didn't even know what it was. And just going through the book, I was like, this is very, very interesting. I'm taking this home as well. And so after looking at the first volume of Marvin's actually edition, I fell in love with it, and I absolutely included it in my program. And this was back in, I want to say, in 1999 or 2000, something like that. This is like 24, 25 years ago. And since then, I have played a lot of Soler sonatas. And back in 2008, 2007, when I was already choosing a topic for my dissertation, I understood this is the one. This is the music that I've been playing so much. I would like to even deeper into it. And what better way to do then research for your PhD, because this is where you really have to dig deeper. And so that's what happened. And I compiled a performance guide to Soler's sonatas. And the whole point was how to perform the sonatas on the modern instrument rather than historical instrument, but keeping the pertinence of style, the historical style. And this is something to make sure that I prolong the life and give more popularity, more exposure to the life of this music, the life of early music, that is not necessarily performed and should not only be performed on the historical instruments. I think there is, of course, that movement of, historical instruments should be, historical music should be performed only on historical instruments. I think I don't really support that. I think we need to give as much light and as much exposure and as much performance opportunities to the beautiful music, whatever era it is from, as possible. Me, like, being an Armenian and playing, music of a region that is quite remote from Armenia, is, again, it's all about giving performance opportunities and exposure opportunities, and unifying the world in a way, the cultural world.
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite remarkable, your story. So you encountered Soler in Moscow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by mistake, because a terrible librarian had left the scores of Soler next to those of Froberger, I think, or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. So F and S really don't follow each other. But anyway, it was a chance, and I think we're all lucky that you had that chance encounter. Now, Soler, you mentioned that one of the things that you're Soler, one of the things that you're trying to do and you're being successful at doing is that you want to play Soler in the modern piano. But you want to keep some of the stylistic features that probably were heard in an old keyboard instrument. Well, here, one of the issues is what instrument did Soler write these sonatas for? Do we know that? And what do you do to transfer that sound to the modern piano?
Wonderful question. Do we know that? This is really a question that is almost rhetorical, because we don't really know that, not only about Soler's use of pianofortes, but even up to Mozart, even up to late Mozart, we can really tell whether this music was written specifically for the harpsichord or the pianoforte. Pianoforte was around. Pianoforte was around in the Spanish court as well, and in fact, Spanish harpsichord maker Francisco Mirabel also made pianofortes in Spain, and there was also the Antunes pianos in Lisbon, in Portugal. The Cristofori replicas, right? There was the Stern piano in Germany. So those are all pianofortes that were in the courts, to the availability of those composers. And at some point, composers, they kept they stopped specifying whether this was written for harpsichord or clavichord or pianoforte. They just wrote for keyboard. So a lot of the times it was also for the performers, choice. And a lot of this music was written also for their royal patrons. So whatever the patron, decided to play on. And Soler's patron was Don Gabriel, Gabriel de Bourbon, who was a very, very important sponsor and supporter of musicians, music. And it's incredible. I mean, he collected musical instruments. He had the strangest and the rarest, instruments in his uh, collection. He built, this little palace called Casita de Arriba, right on the
Casita de
hill,
arriba.
right near El Escorial, where he kept all of those keyboard instruments. And so I mean, of course, we can get into details about this, but the music, I can tell as a performer that some sonatas are intended to be performed on pianoforte, and some probably more like on harpsichord. And you can tell by the techniques that he is using. Some of the big octave, movements, is just not going to sound right on the harpsichord. You can clearly tell that this is for pianoforte. And some other kind of passages, you can tell that he really, really wanted to have this percussive harpsichord sound, and that's what he intended. So, how do we play that music on the modern instruments? That's also a great question. Now, when we are playing Bach, do we use pedal or do we not use pedal? So this is almost like the same kind of a question. Well, for example, Andras Schiff, whom I adore, and especially his Bach, he doesn't use the pedal, but he doesn't use the pedal not to make a point. The way that he doesn't use pedal, you don't even notice that he doesn't use pedal. I remember when I was at his concert, his performance in Chicago of Goldberg Variations, I discovered suddenly mid through the performance that he's not using pedal. So he not made a point. It was just he was finding that sonority through not using the pedal, but doing his own way, his own touch, and his own timbres. I think that Bach, if he had the instrument that we have now that has pedals, he would not ignore the pedals, and he would not ignore the capacities that this instrument is offering. And I think same for Soler, and especially knowing how experimental and how forward thinking and what an inventor mind he had, I am sure he would not ignore this immense capacity that this instrument offers, and he would definitely use pedal and use all of it. Now, the question of authenticity, that's again something that really comes into this whole discussion. What is authentic? If I don't use pedal and if I don't use the capacity that this instrument offers, and I play only, let's say, at a church or in a European old mansion, pretending to be in a court, is this, or in a monastery, is this making it authentic performance? Not really. How authentic are we? How authentic are our ears at this point? Do we really have recordings of Soler playing? No, we don't. There are so many manuscripts, and the manuscripts are so diverse. Many of the manuscripts don't even have dates. All the opus numbers, all the catalog is all mixed up. Many of his works are lost. In fact, a very, very cool collection of sonatas that was called Quadrolibro in all 12 major and minor keys that was written, by Soler is lost. I mean, this composer was very, very forward thinking. And with all of this, I think performer is encountering this challenge of having the freedom, but also the challenge of the authenticity and keeping the pertinent style that we are informed by education. So I think that doing a deep research, and not just only Soler, but in Iberian music, and not only just Iberian music, but in early music in general, really helps us use that freedom, that artistic creativity in a more informed, authentic, as authentic as we have the right to use that word, sense, so kind of combine and maybe face that challenge this way. Like Alicia de la Rocha, and I mentioned that in my book as well, says, about this music, that there is no just one way of performing this music. And she was a big advocate of Soler's music, and one of the very few musicians who performed Soler. Unfortunately, Soler is still not performed. I was just recently in Spain, teaching in various conservatories, and conservators all knowing that there is a specialist of Soler's music, a scholar of Soler's music, coming to give masterclass. Most of the students were performing Scarlatti and other composers. So the Scarlatti was the closest that I would get, to Soler. This is sad, an Armenian musician is performing and advocating, for this beautiful Catalan, composer, and that has so much to offer. And I would really, really see more musicians and more pianists and harpsichordists, to play this.
Yeah, definitely the music of Antoni Soler should be better known, of course. But I think that you will agree that the sonatas for keyboard, whether harpsichord or clavichord or fortepiano, is actually in his output is the things that are known the most, because quite a few pianists play them. You wrote a dissertation in the United States about this, but how many dissertations are about Soler in the United States? Probably 6, 7, 8, something like that.
You were very, very close. So back in 2008-9, when I was about to defend the dissertation, and that, in those years, I know that there were only 5 dissertations, and 3 out of them were, an analysis of physiology de la modulation. So that doesn't really count. And the other 2 were, discussing his music. But again, it's only 5. And I remember that about 5-6 years ago, a lady approached me from Asia. I cannot remember where exactly from. I think it was from, she was from Taiwan, and she was also working on a dissertation on Soler, and she approached me and asked for my permission to use some of, the materials, and also asked for a quote. So I want to say maybe 6, or hopefully now more. But unfortunately not that many.
Yeah, but there is, even 6 or 7, that would be a fairly okay number, I guess. And also then we have pianists like Alicia La Rocha, who played his music on the piano all over the world, and a lot of people got to know Antoni Soler through the recordings of Alicia, because Alicia La Rocha recorded for Sony and EMI and big labels. So her recordings were widely disseminated. Alicia, of course, she was a Catalan, like Soler too. Just to recap a little bit, a couple of things about his bio. Soler was born in Olot, the town in Girona. And then at a very early age, he studied in the monastery of Montserrat. So basically the heartland of Catalonia. But following his religious vocation and also his musical vocation, he applied for a couple of jobs. He worked at a couple of cathedrals. One of the cathedrals, apparently, for what I've read, musicologists are not 100% sure, but he worked at the Seu d'Urgell, and also in Lleida, the Cathedral of Lleida, supposedly. But soon enough, he moved to San Lorenzo del Escorial in Madrid, and that's where he developed his career, in Madrid.
Right.
And in Madrid, he developed his career working for the Bourbon monarchy in a very delicate moment in Spanish history, the so-called War of Succession. There are two branches of the monarchs who claim the throne, and Philip V, who was French, as we all know, and he's the Bourbon, wins, these battles, and he starts applying French, quote unquote, modernizing ideas in the kingdoms of Spain. And some of this modernization implies the suppression of certain rights of Aragon and Catalonia and a few other regions. So essentially what I'm saying is that Antoni Soler was working for monarchs who really did not, they really, I'm sorry?
Yeah, who did not support
Did not support his own identity. But of course, what do we know about identities? He moved to Madrid, to the monastery at a very young age. And, we can even say that he is one of the creators, one of the pillars of the Spanish idiom. He was in touch in Madrid. We don't know if he took lessons with Domenico Scarlatti, great master of the harpsichord, and the Scarlatti had already given to his employees, the Spanish monarchs, some of what they wanted, which was a Spanish sound, imitation of castanets on the keyboard, imitation of the guitar, the use of the fandango, and Soler kind of adapts that, Would you agree? And I'm sorry for going on and on with this.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I absolutely, this is very, very interesting, as you say, the historical surrounding, and this really affects Soler's music and also the popularity of Soler's music. And in a way, maybe I was thinking about it, in fact, last night, maybe this really affects up until now the popularity, or the lack of the popularity of Soler, why he's still not as well known as Scarlatti. A lot of the musicians, if they know Soler, they are, oh, he's the Spanish Scarlatti. And this is, in a way, it's killing. What do you mean Spanish Scarlatti? Scarlatti was there to imitate the Spanish sound, and there was Soler, who was doing this organically, because he was Spanish, he was Catalan, and he was from the region. He was the organic, it's also very interesting, how Philip V, with his Italian wife, came to Spanish court, brought the French court dances, the Italian opera, all those fashion. And what's that?
Farinelli.
Well, Farinelli actually came not with Philip V, but Philip V and his Italian wife, they brought all those fashions, of course, and people liked it at first, and then they started rebelling against this suppression of the national costume even and national identity. And by the time of Philip V's death, they were really up in arms with their national identity and wanting to have to have that support. And so Philip's son, Fernando VI, who was born in Spain, was absolutely welcomed by the people as finally, and and also Philip the Sixth. I say Philip, Fernando the Sixth. He supported the national identity and he supported the folk art, but brought his princess from Portugal, right, Maria Barbara de Braganza, and people welcomed that as well. They were like, okay, well, this is from the neighboring Portugal, much closer cultural ties. This is going to be different. This is going to be more supportive of our culture. But the funny thing is that Maria Barbara Braganza was a huge fan of Italian musicians and Italian art. And so, yes, she was Portuguese, but she brought all of those Italian musicians, including Farinelli and Galuppi and Scarlatti. So Scarlatti moved to Portugal 10 years prior to Maria Barbara's moving to Spain, and was teaching Maria Barbara there in Lisbon for 10 years. And so she brought him also to Spain. And so this is very, very funny to me that, after an Italian queen in Spain, they are getting finally excited about a closer ties, Portuguese queen that becomes, Spanish queen. And she brings all these Italians with her. And so, yes, she brings all the Italians, but they are supposed to be supportive of Spanish and the local culture. So she asks them, these composers, to imitate the Spanish idioms, right? The Spanish guitar, the castañez, the zapateado, and all of this. Then there is also Soler, the local, who is, Catalan or, working in Spain in Spanish. He is the original, so to say. And so Fernando's brother, right? Because Fernando didn't stay on the throne that long. He died, I think, in about like 10 years or so. Carlos the Third, and that's whose sons Soler was teaching, and his and the closest student and supporter, or pretty much a friend or an impresario, was Don Gabriel de Bourbon, so the son of Carlos.
Well, we're basically out of time, and this is, I think that you could talk, and me too, a little bit, but you, of course, you could talk about Soler, for hours and hours. And thank you so much for your erudition, your scholarship. Congratulations on your book. And yes, El Mundo de Antonio Soler, published in Barcelona by Editorial Boileau. So congratulations for your activities, and thank you very much for having this conversation with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you not only for hosting me, but also thank you to Boileau Editorial for publishing my book, for being so supportive and supportive of my work. And I will look forward, to the performances and presenting this beautiful composer around the world as much as possible.
And of course, on YouTube, and also other recordings and live concerts, people can listen to your Soler anytime. So thank you for that.
Thank you. In fact, there is a website for this project called www.solersworld.com. And so people can hear also recordings and get
Solersworld.com. Solersworld.com.
Solersworld.com. One word. Yeah, one word. So solersworld.com. And they can purchase the book. They can read more about the book, the topics that I discussed during the lectures and the presentation, and also have listen to my recordings on this. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.